While the Russian airfield was targeted again, Russia continued to lose their airplanes, this time on the ground. This is the Koshivsky airfield in Krasnodar Oblast. It was targeted a couple of days ago, but today we have obtained some of the satellite images, quite detailed images, so we may judge how many airplanes Russia lost out there. Well, we may say about at least one Sukhoi 27, one Sukhoi 34 and Sukhoi Su-30, which is under the question whether it was severely damaged or not, but two of the airplanes at least demolished. We may see it from this image, so this is before and this is after. Sukhoi 27 and Sukhoi 30, which was parked there by the time of the Ukrainian strike. As you can see, Russia put some sort of the barriers between the airplane stands, but it doesn't help a lot. Still, they're in lack of the hangars. So what they did after attack, they basically evacuated their airplanes from that airfield further away. But those were absolutely unable to fly. Also, we may check out Sukhoi 34 fighter bomber, which Russia uses to target Ukrainian positions and Ukrainian infrastructure. It was parked further away by the time of the strike, and you see that it is disassembled into several of the pieces. Even with this resolution, we may state that. So altogether, before and after. Russia doesn't want to use that airfield any longer. Plus, we have some of the data coming from Crimea that Russia is evacuating some of their aviation, for example, from Janko airfield, sending the airplanes to Simferopol at least. They want to move everything as further as possible because Ukraine obtained ATACMS. But in this case, Ukraine used drones, which are made in Ukraine, so Ukraine is out of the permission to use Western weaponry to target the Russian airfields on the Russian territory. Guys, you probably heard about the many of the peace talk initiatives which are coming from, for example, China, Russia, or from our allied countries like United States and the European Union. So there's going to be the summit in Switzerland very soon. But Russia also pushes their so-called peace plan, which means the capitulation of Ukraine. Basically, let me tell you more about what Putin said today and the information that leaked to the press. So there was the information from Reuters, and I was able to find it on the ground news platform because I check it every day. So Putin wants Ukraine since fire on the current front lines. The other media sources took this information, and totally we have 60 of the articles about this topic, including Reuters themselves and other media. If you want to get the latest news possible, please subscribe for the ground news platform using my personal link ground.news/Dennis. You might find it in the video description just below. So Kyiv Independent, it's the Ukrainian media source, says that Putin is looking for a ceasefire to cement gains in Ukraine, so all of the controlled territory. But I think that it will not happen like that. Even though we have many of the articles saying that Putin is ready to talk, but we also have the statement from Putin's secretary Peskov, who said that Russia is not willing to negotiate on the current front line because they want to get more ground. Basically, they put Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts in their constitution. That is why this war might continue until Ukraine recognizes those lands as the Russian ones, but Ukraine would never do it. I use the ground news platform all the time. It keeps me updated on the current events about what is happening in Ukraine and in the world. What I like the ground news for is that it gives me all of the information about the article before I even click on it, the bias distribution and the factuality report. As you can see, for this particular article we have the mixed factuality 50-50. I think because Reuters didn't say about their sources of this information. And all of that, including the factuality report, you may check on each article. We may also see the origin of the news judging on this map. You may find a dedicated chapter about the war in Ukraine, all the latest news and main headlines. I also use the ground news to get the access for the Russian media sources. Yes, I also need to check their site as well to understand their bias and what they provide for their audience. The ground news is the best platform for you to find out about what is happening around the world. They're not the part of the big media corporation, no, they rely on our subscriptions. So if you want to support the fantastic team of the ground news and also my channel, please subscribe for the ground news using my personal link, which you may find in the video description just below. It's ground.news/Dennis, or scan the QR code available on the screen. Ground News, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. So what's the plan that Putin wants to implement with the help of his allies, like for example China, Belarus And now Brazil is joining that team as well, because they agreed on Chinese proposal. Well, they want to use the current inability of Ukraine to counter-strike the Russian forces in their favor. We say that Russia takes the ground now, they have initiative, unlike Ukraine, but it's just temporary, my friends. Ukraine will obtain more military support and will have also the ground gains. But Putin wants everyone to understand that Russia is winning. It's time to follow the Russian proposal, not the proposal from our allies or from the Ukraine itself. For this reason, he actually went to Belarus. He spoke with Lukashenko about the joint proposal of how to escalate next. All the statements that Putin wants to secure the current border are not real. As I said to you, he wants to get more control, and the best variant for him is to establish the puppet government in Ukraine. That's why he also took the ex-Ukrainian president Yanukovych together with him, not on a meeting, but he also was presented in Belarus. We know it because this is the airplane of Yanukovych with this registration. It was spotted flying to Belarus and landed there. Plus, Putin took all of the renewed military command together with him on that meeting. He said that Russia and Ukraine should re-establish the peace talks based on what was negotiated in Istanbul in the beginning of 2022. By that time, it was a huge threat for Ukraine as a country. Russia was very close to Kiev and to many other big cities. So Zelensky actually was okay with negotiating with Russia. The representative of Ukraine even signed the paper with Russia, some sort of the beginning of the peace talks. And now Putin says about it every time. So he wants to take those negotiations as the base. He wants to take some of the ground from Ukraine, all the oblasts that are now in the Russian constitution on the paper, not actually there. But he wants Ukraine to agree with that. And he also told that Zelensky's term expired. I think that in that case, Russia doesn't recognize Zelensky as the figure who might sign some sort of the peace agreement with Russia. So everything is very difficult because Ukraine also doesn't recognize Vladimir Putin as the Russian president after his fake election result. And honestly, if you look at this picture widely, yes, Russia is not intended to sign any sort of the peace deal with Ukraine, even though they're talking about it, but they came out with proposals that will ruin Ukrainian sovereignty. According to their deal, Ukraine will be slave to Russia, as for example, Belarus and part of the territories will be occupied by Russia. So Russia wants to disturb the peace summit that will take place in Switzerland. Oh, why don't we have the borders between the countries out there? So there is the Switzerland, and Putin doesn't want anyone to go there, and they want to escalate even further. Yes, now they strike Kharkiv, they bogged down out there. We're going to speak more about it in today's video. They also concentrate some of the forces near Sumy region. And according to today's information, Russia is concentrating their forces in Bryansk Oblast, ready to strike Chernihiv Oblast too. Plus, we know that Russia moves their forces to Belarus, and there the talks are going in Minsk between military of Russia and Belarus. Putin wants Belarus obviously to take part in intervention to Ukraine once again, to cause Ukraine to start negotiations which are not profitable for our country. So Putin wants to create the same stuff as it happened in the beginning of 2022, to push Ukraine from many sides, to show the West that their weaponry is just useless against the Russian mighty army. But this plan is quite risky. It's go-no-go scenario. Ukraine is ready for it, and I'm sure that even joint Belarus-Russian army will be defeated near Kiev again. Back in the beginning of 2022, Ukraine was oriented on the peace talks because no one was sure whether Ukraine obtains weaponry or not. Luckily now we have huge support from many countries, including UK, United States, France, Germany. It is just massive resource compared to what was used to get rid of the Russian army, for example, in Kiev and Chernihiv Oblasts. So in general, if Russia starts to implement this plan, I'm sure that they will fail with it. And if we go to their latest offensive maneuver in Kharkiv Oblast, here you can see the changes for today, yesterday, today again, yesterday and today. No big changes. Russia even left this part of the field and one of the straits. The Ukrainian side said that Russian advancement near Vovchansk was stopped and Ukraine is up to counterattack the Russian forces. So for all of this time, Russia managed to advance by 6.5 kilometers. Yeah, what was started as advertised by the Russian military bloggers as the second 24th of February 2022, but this time actually bogged down, even though Russia has enormous resources compared to Ukraine, but they have incompetent military command. Sometimes it also might happen to some of the Ukrainian commanders. For example, the defense of Kharkiv region wasn't organized properly. There were some of the misjudgments and obviously corruption. By the way, the special trial was open and hopefully those people responsible for the wrongdoing will be punished. And it will never happen again like that. But anyways, even with those flaws, Ukraine was capable to stop the Russian advancement, so it will happen the same in Sumy, in Kharkiv, in Chernihiv, and if needed, Kiev Oblast. Just to recall, this is Kiev, and Russia was able to advance near it just in 3 days. By that time, Ukraine wasn't ready, but now it is fully ready. Our military keeps lots of the forces near the border, so I'm sure that there will be no second Bucha, for example. But Russia has this possible plan, and maybe they will start to implement it, who knows, because their management is damn crazy, especially the political management. Alright, we have some of the other interesting news also coming from the Russian Krasnodar Krai, the place where the Russian military airfield was targeted. Well, together with the airfield, the Russian over-the-horizon early warning radar Voronezh DM was targeted as well. The headquarters and the control rooms of the radar were demolished. The attack happened the day before yesterday, and you can see the result on the screen. More image and one more. So 2 of the headquarters buildings were kaputted. This radar is no-go for the Russian military. The last month, one more over-horizon radar was targeted with the Ukrainian UAV. So basically, Russia is getting blind. Mostly those radars are very important to identify the ballistic missiles, like ICBMs or even ATACMS. The Russian military bloggers already called it as the national threat for the nuclear Russian power and asked for the tactical nuclear response. But I'm sure that Putin will not do it, at least at this stage. And this is how this radar looked before. So actually the building itself is also like a radar. This is the complex that I showed you, and this is the damage. Yeah, mostly it is used for the ICBM detection. Totally, Russia has around 10 of those radars on its territory. Yeah, most of them are located in the European part of Russia, but the rest are dispersed along the Russian territory. One of the best Russian generals, Ivan Popov, was confirmed to be arrested. The Russian persecutors blame him for corruption, and, as I said to you once, it's the good sign for Ukraine, because the competent Russian generals who are willing to say the things as they are getting jailed. This guy is very popular among the Russian soldiers. Well, maybe not like Prigozhin, but very similar to it. I think that Gerasimov wasn't able to establish control over him, so they decided to jail the guy. Because of his actions, personally, Ukraine mainly bogged down on the south during the last year's counteroffensive actions. And now he got his reward from Russia. Our guys managed to capture the best Russian tank T-90 Emperor Reef. It's not the first time that our guys are able to trophy that unique tank. Well, it's not that much different from the T-72B3, but nevertheless, it is still the good tank. And now it is in Ukraine. After some of the maintenance job, it will fight for Ukrainian army. Jens Stoltenberg, the chief of NATO, in his today's interview called NATO countries to allow Ukraine to use the Western-made weaponry on the Russian territory. He says that it is necessary to prevent the Russian movement to cross the Ukrainian border. Basically, it may disturb all the Russian plans to push Ukraine for some sort of the capitulation, or how Russia calls its peace plan. Basically, they want to establish the puppet government in Ukraine, as I told you. So hopefully Ukraine will get this permission, first of all from the United States. The Force RST system was delivered to Ukraine from Germany. Germany, thank you so much for your awesome support. Actually, from all of the European Union countries, Germany delivers the most of the ammunition, weaponry and air defense to Ukraine. By the way, Sukhoi 27 that was targeted on that airfield was the aircraft of the Russian aerobatic group, Russian Vitis or Russian Knights. It's like the red arrows but in Russia. Red faces in this case. As I told you in my last video, Ukraine has expanded the territorial gains in Krinky. As you see, we have Ukrainian flag waving in the new area. I'm waiting for the geo coordinates of this particular point, but as I was told, it is in the forest area of Krinky. The mighty Russian army is unable to push Ukraine out from Krinky for a very long time, even though the ex-Russian defense minister Shoigu reported that Krinky village were liberated by Russia a few months ago. He told about it directly to Putin, and maybe that is why Putin dismissed him, that he obtained the wrong information, not just about Krinky, but about everything that is happening in the Russian army. We have many of the reports from the Russian Z channels that Ukraine opened the gates for the water in Zaporizhia and water goes to the Russian positions as they claim. So we have the reports flooding of the Dnieper coastline is possible, positions of the coast prepare things first, necessary personnel, weapons for the possible evacuation. Islands, attention, possible flooding, so we have tons of the reports about it. I wonder if it's true or not, but it is just coming right now. The United States of America has approved a new military package for Ukraine. It's around 275 million United States dollars, and here what we have: artillery shells, ammunition for HIMARS, and lots of the other tactical and not only stuff. Plus javelins from the previous military package. We started to receive many of those, and now they are in use, for example, in Vovchansk. Ukraine has many of them out there. That's why basically the Russian tanks were stopped in Vovchansk. No any Russian tank was able to enter that city, only Russian infantry is presented out there. Russia has the dramatic increase of the people with disabilities. We see that increasement from 2022 and it goes up dramatically. For last year's statistics, obviously it will continue to grow. Yeah, I guess that in Ukraine we have the similar statistics, just lower numbers, but this is what war brings usually. The thing that Russian disabled people are unable to live their normal life, like for example people with disabilities in Europe or in North America, where you have some of the infrastructure for disabled people. In Russia, it is absolutely absent, so the soldiers who got severe wounds in this war, well, their life is just ruined in Russia. Most of them will find their happiness in vodka. Well, I agree that it happens to veterans also in Ukraine and in America, but in Russia it has just dramatic scale, especially with those huge numbers. Just imagine, almost 300,000 people require wheelchairs per year. It also tells a lot about the Russian losses in Ukraine. There are some of the reports, first of all from Reuters, that Russia is able to jam the JLSDB missiles to cause the interference for the satellite and navigation unit, so those shells are not very precise now. So our allies are working on how to bypass this Russian electronic warfare. I'm sure that they will come out with a solution, but it takes time. But sometimes those shells are very effective, even with the Russian jammers. I saw the video how the Russian base was targeted with many of the JLSDB shells, and they went straight to the command center building. Also, we have absolutely great video that I published on my Telegram channel where the Russian S-400 air defense systems were targeted with ATACMS missiles. Absolutely fantastic firework as usual provided by ATACMS. If you see that kind of the stuff, it's the rocket fuel on fire. France promised to send 100 of the Bastion armored vehicles. Great. Ukraine needs lots of the armored vehicles on the front lines, heavy ones and also light maneuverable, like this one for example. Taiwanese officials say that their army is fully ready to defend the island against the possible intervention by China. And today I saw this video. This is the China J-16 aircraft fighter jet, basically the copy of Sukhoi 27 from what I can see, and it was spotted from the aiming equipment of the F-16 of the Taiwanese Air Force. It means that both of the sides send their fighter jets to fly in the neutral waters around Taiwan. Also, this Chinese bomber, the copy of the Soviet-made Tupolev 16, was spotted by F-16s of the Taiwan Air Force. Plus, Taiwan is getting its Patriot systems ready for the possible defense of the island. From what I can see, it would be not an easy walk for the Chinese army if they decide to strike Taiwan. No, they have lots of the weaponry, it's the modern one, so they will cause China severe losses if they would try to do so. Hopefully, it wouldn't happen. From what I can say, that Communist China reduced its military activity to 3 of the zones, before there were 5 zones. This is the picture from yesterday. Protests against the new foreign agent law in Georgia continue. It is interesting that some of the people took those images and started to say that it's the Georgia state of the United States with lots of the protests against the United States laws. Tremendous stupidity, I call it. Well, what does this foreign agent law means is basically the establishment of the Russian influence in Georgia. Yeah, now they have the pro-Russian parliament and people are strongly against it. With this law, their parliament might apply repressions on the media sources or particular people who say what parliament doesn't like. That's why people are against it. My friends, and now please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so you help me a lot, and also I encourage you to subscribe for the Ground News platform. It is the awesome tool to be constantly updated about what is happening around Ukraine and in the world. You may find the link for it in the video description just below. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.